Kia ora and welcome to Oasis Scents. Today I am showing you how I make and cut my candle labels using 3 different methods. It doesn't just apply to candles, it can be other products too, but specifically this is how I do my candle labels. It is also how I do these fancy labels here on the Health Potion candle, which I think is really cool, and I'm glad I finally figured out how to use my Cricut. The first method I'm going to be showing you today is the hand cutting method using scissors and a circle cutter. The second method is going to be using my guillotine. Actually, I think my guillotine's first, but anyway. And then the third method is going to be the Cricut, and this is how I cut all of my tin lid labels, my woodwick candles, and more. First of all, I use Adobe Illustrator to do all my labels. Probably not the best option, but this is what I think works best for me. I really like Illustrator. I find it very easy to navigate. When I'm adding the candle labels into it, I always make sure everything's aligned and I get rid of any white space in between the candle labels, as I find this a lot easier to cut and speeds up the process. I have a big master file of where I store all of my candle labels, as you can see, and then I drag them into a new file to then create the ones I'm going to be cutting. I'll then save this onto my computer, and I will just label it Untitled 1, which is honestly the worst, but also very easy for me to find on my desktop. I will then print this. My printer is an HP laser printer, and I have a special thing set up so I don't have to redo all the settings every single time. It is set up to allow for label paper, which means it prints slower, and it also will print on the correct paper and in the correct tray and in colour and all that good stuff. Means it doesn't go double-sided. As you can see here, well, not really, it's a bit small, I'm sorry. Here's me double checking that everything is correct, and then I'll go okay. I always select this, and I don't always just print straight from the print option, as this gives better quality. My label paper goes in label side up or shiny side up in my printer, and then I'll go print, and then it'll print out. You know, that's how a printer works. I really like this, I really like this printer. It is really good. I used to use my parents' printer at their work. However, when Byron and I moved to Auckland, we had to buy a printer. It took me a really long time to decide, and I ultimately decided that a laser printer was better for me. So after I've printed out all of my labels, I will then cut them. So the first option is using a guillotine to cut this. I find this method is the best in terms of my side labels, that's what I call them. It has the best precision and everything. I know I could use the Cricut to also do this, but I find this a lot faster. I also find this faster than hand cutting. However, guillotines are expensive. I think this one was nearly $200 for an A3 guillotine, which I know is a huge expense, especially if you're just starting out as a business. So I think hand cutting them with scissors is honestly the best method. If you don't have a laser printer, you can also find inkjet paper. However, I use laser paper because it's the best paper in my opinion for this. I found that it's also about 40 seconds faster per piece of paper to cut using the guillotine in comparison to hand cutting. And that doesn't sound like a lot of time, but overall it is if you're cutting a lot per month. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say other than I'm not a perfectionist, so it works well for me. I'm happy with it. Byron also enjoys this method. Well, I wouldn't say he enjoys it, but he said it was definitely a lot better than hand cutting. The only reason why I still hand cut labels often is because 1, I'm only doing 1 sheet at a time, or 2, I have another job that I work on Sundays. If you haven't seen my TikTok about it, well, you should go check it out. And on Sundays I don't want to take my guillotine with me to work, so I hand cut them. Here's all the labels ready to go. So the next method, as I said, was scissors and a circle cutter. I use this Fiskars 1 inch or 5 centimeter circle cutter. I don't tend to use it much anymore, but I thought I would show it off anyway. I got my one from Warehouse Stationery, but I know that the Warehouse used to sell them, and also Spotlight. I'm not sure who stocks them still. I found them quite difficult to get, but yeah, those are the ones. That's the one I use, and I've gone through 3 at this time. They do get very sticky though, however, so I do find that they're a bit counterproductive as you have to clean them often. This is the method I used up until using my Cricut though, however. So I would cut hundreds of these circle labels for the top of my tins. I think that tin top labels look way better than not having anything at all, so I definitely recommend it. And I will also hand cut out other labels such as my bath bomb labels or my bath salt labels, as you can see here. Now on to cutting the circle labels. So I will cut up the edge to make sure that I have as much access as possible. The squares that I have printed allow for a good bleed on the outside, as you would call it, I guess. I don't know. And that's how I cut them. It looks really cool. Really happy with it. But yeah, I've switched method now. I just want to show you this method so then you know that it exists. The next method I'm showing you is my Cricut. So first of all, I will pull everything into a label file I've named Tin Top, and then I will create a clipping mask to make it a circle, and then I will export that as an artboard and later drag it into the Cricut design space. This method does take a long time, but once you've done it once, you don't really have to do it again with each candle. Obviously, if you're only releasing a few candles total, you don't have to worry at all. However, I've got this thing where I release multiple a month because I'm crazy. So I've kind of dug myself a hole there. It means I have to do it often. Also, this year I switched all of my labels. I updated them all, which means that I have to do it even more often, as a lot of labels that I made last year are no longer can be used, so I have to update them. Yeah, here's me exporting another candle. These are all of my December candles, so if you see any that you're keen on, they're probably available in my store now. Once I've done that, I'll then upload them into the Cricut design space, and I will select the complex option for the upload, which basically just means it's the best quality possible. And that's another thing I didn't mention, is I always make these files like 10 times bigger than they need to be, especially the tin tops, as I find that the quality is a lot better when you do that, because you can size down but you can't really size up. Once it's imported into that, I will then remove the background, and then that's all ready to go. Also, select print then cut, don't forget to do that, sorry. And then I'll just upload a whole lot more. Here's me doing it multiple times. I hope you really enjoy this because it takes a little while. Occasionally, if I have trouble trying to find the correct file, or it's saving, like the Cricut opens in a weird place, I can also drag and drop, which speeds up the process a whole lot more, especially if you have two screens like me. I know not everyone does, I just do because I'm used to it. So if you have two screens, you can make the process a lot faster. Once it's all in there, I will then create a new file, and then I'll select all of the ones I want to make, and then it will upload into the design space. Well, it's already in a design space, the project or something. I don't know what it's called, but it's the space where you then go make project. I will then align these to be in the center because they will upload in a weird little worm looking thing. And then I will make them the right size. These will upload at 10 centimeters wide for me personally. I will then resize them down to 5 centimeters so they're the same size as the ones I cut using the circle cutter. I will then drag these out so then it is easier for me to see exactly what I'm printing and cutting, and then I will go make the Cricut file, I guess that's what it's called, and then I will see that there's a spot missing. I don't like how the Cricuts don't allow that much space for cutting. I found I got 3 more tin tops per sheet when I used to hand cut them all, but this is a lot faster and better for me. So I will just play around with it until I get the exact amount of space that to like utilize the entire page essentially. It's really important to utilize as much space as possible. You can see here that I was playing around with it, so I deleted some because I didn't need that many. I just wanted to fill up one page. Once I've done that, I will then set up my Cricut, make sure it's all plugged in and everything, and then I will select the make project or create project, or I can't remember what that button is, but the green button, not the blue button. Voiceovers aren't my strong suit, but I hope you're enjoying this. So once that's done, I will make sure that I have selected the correct size. I print on A4 paper here in New Zealand, and then I'll send it to the printer. Like I do for the other ones, select the specialty label or sticker paper printing that I have personally set up, as I think this prints in better quality. This means that when you go send to printer, you have to select the print using print dialog, and also turn off the bleed, as I don't think the bleed helps whatsoever. I personally don't like the bleed. You also have to make sure you got the right printer selected, because sometimes it wants to print on the wrong printer. Once I then hit print, it'll open up the print dialog, and I can then make all the changes I want to make sure it prints on the correct paper in the correct way. I'll then load the printer paper, and then I will print it, you know, that good stuff. And after that, I will then select the material. I have it set to custom, and I selected the white sticker paper, matte, I think that is, or white or something. And I've also changed the pressure so then it doesn't cut through the page. It really depends. You'll have to play around with this quite a bit on your own. And then here is it printed, and then here is me putting it on the Cricut mat. I do have one of those scraper things to like help it stick down, but it wasn't in the room at the time, so I also use my hands. And this is Byron's desk. Thank you, Byron, for letting me use your desk while you're not in the room as a second table. Once that is all done, I will then load it into the Cricut and it will do its thing. The longest process of the Cricut is the scanning. Here's me showing you that it was set to custom. That's the correct one to use, and you then go through all the materials and find the one you want to use, as it's 10 times better to do that versus the ones that are preset. Unless you're doing vinyl, then I use the vinyl one, but I'm not doing vinyl right now. Also, my printer and my Cricut are on the shelf next to my computer. I find it really annoying, and I also always select fast mode because it is faster. If I'm trying out a new project for the first time, I won't, but for this I know how it cuts, so I always select that. Here is it taking about 10 million years to scan. It is very annoying, but it does mean that I can often set up other mats at the same time, although I only have 3 of these blue mats, so I probably will need to get more for the future, as it is very time consuming having to then quickly change them, or I tend to be standing around. But as you grow, then you just need to make these changes that you realize need to happen, Anyway, I do prefer using the Cricut over hand cutting, as the tends to be less issues as long as the Cricut isn't having issues. I would say that I would prefer to get a Cameo silhouette Cameo, whatever it's called. I just didn't realize that they were a thing until after I'd bought this one. I do also have a Cricut Air 2, I think, and I don't think you need to get the maker. I don't think there's much of a difference, especially if you're just cutting candle labels or other product labels. It's only if you're doing, I would say, like vinyl stuff or lots of things like that I would say upgrade to the bigger one. As long as you have the print to cut feature, then you can do this. And I imagine it's very similar on the other ones. Once it's done cutting, here is me showing you how they look and taking it off the board. Yeah, I really like this, and I like how I've set it so it doesn't cut through the whole paper, because it did that for a while and it was very annoying. So here's me showing you once with a bit of blur. Here's me showing you another time. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know down below, and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time. Ka kite anō.
My love language is your time and attention. Won't you give some of it to me?